Welcome to the second in our Skillsminer Community Webinar series. We've got a couple of people joining.
I can't believe we're on the second session already and in December, which is quite scary actually. Time seems to have gone so fast.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. So this is part 2 of our 4 Advent webinars. But
no free chocolates just yet. I know.
No free chocolate, but we will be pulling these together. Today's we're going to be looking at the skills you have, the skills you need, and how to hire for skills. So I'll just carry on moving forward through today's content, and we'll speak to the group and we'll throw some questions out there for everybody as we go.
Fantastic.
Okay.
Yeah, welcome everybody. I'm Kirsty. This is Dinah, my colleague. I think most of you already know us on the call today, but thank you so much for joining us. And for anybody that's new, we're really pleased that you've been able to drop into our webinar series. As Dinah's just said, they are available on demand as well. So we share that and the course notes at the end of every session, and we're going to pull it all together as well at the end too, so people can just view it at their leisure over the Christmas break.
Great. Any questions that you have, if you want to pop those into the chat at any point, and we'll pick those up as we go. And if you have anything that you don't want to bring up in the chat and you want to get in touch with us outside of the webinar, then please just do so. We've got our contact details here. So let's get started. 4 webinars, and by the end of the 4 webinars, you'll have an outline plan that will help you with your skills focus for performance in 2026. Last week, we covered strategic buy-in, shared language for skills, skills architecture, and today we're going to be looking at learning more about the skills you have, more about the skills you need, and how to hire for skills, and looking for that hidden talent inside your teams.
It's a good starting point. And so, yeah, the first big question that we've been asking everybody is really, do you know the skills that you have in your organization today? I know it sounds like a really basic question to start off with. And please feel free to type in the chat if anyone's willing to share their experience. Sometimes it can be quite tricky, large organization, or actually an organization that's doing very complicated or complex kind of tasks. Just getting to the bottom of what everybody does it can be quite tricky at times.
We don't know, probably. We don't that we have in our organisation today, or we know some of them. So our next question for you is probably a follow-on from that one.
Yep. It's just really thinking about the skills that you need for the future, strategically where you're going as a business. Sometimes how far ahead as well. Often when we talk to organisations, if they're struggling to be able to identify what they have right now, planning what they need 6 months from now or even 12 months ahead can be really quite tricky. And if that's the case and you're winning new business or you're trying to be competitive in an ever-changing market, that can feel really quite overwhelming at scale, to kind of like look into that in any detail.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely can. So we touched on this, and this is sort of an anchor point for us really to think about. When you're looking at the skills that you have in your organization, the skills you need, this is how you're going to get this performance value flow. So we touched on this in our first webinar, and we'll just quickly trot through it here again to say that if you know about the skills you have, that helps you do the work, helps you drive outcomes, gets those key results that you're looking for in 2026, and really contributes to that company performance. And the same is there in the cycle of this, that those strategic objectives that you have, the changes that you want to deliver in 2026, you're planning, those are really the things that are going to drive the skills that you need, because this works again in reverse, that those things will drop back down through the work that has to be done to the skills that you need to do the work.
Yep. And these really are the 3 core concepts that we're looking at today that links back into that diagram that Dinah's just shown us. Today, we're going to really dig into learning about the skills that we have. So if that first question seemed a bit overwhelming in the beginning, how do we make a start on discovering that? Discovering more about the skills that we need. How can we plan beyond even that 6 and 12 months into the future? And how and why we need to hire for skills. And then also looking at how does this help us to identify that hidden talent that might already be sitting inside your team before you start having to look outside the organization. So that's always quite an exciting thing to do.
Good, good, good. So the first concept.
Yes. Wow. Learning about the skills that we have. So really when we start to think about this and when thinking about from last week moving into this is about us being able to understand that the tactical skills that we even have in our organization right now, the skills that we have and what we need and what you can do with that insight and knowledge to help your performance not only today, but starting to plan what comes up next and for not just next year, but moving ahead from that. And why does that really matter? Well, whether you're hiring or maintaining or losing employees sometimes in your business, doing this without any knowledge of skills can open up organizations to risk round about capabilities and the kind of cover of capability inside your organization. And so we like to dig a little bit deeper at Skillsminer. How does this matter? And how is it linked to performance? All of our people inside our organization matters. If you think about how it all knits together, without understanding that, we might be limiting their value and their understanding how they're contributing to that value inside your organization. And if you know what your people can do and their capability, where do we take them next? What are they doing today? How do we plan for that next step? What sort of decisions are we making from that data and information that we have? And how do we get to that in a kind of quick and effective way as well? So if you know that capability, then we can start to make better informed decisions about the skills that we need to be able to enhance our performance. We can easily see the skills that we have inside our organisation and what we have today. And where do we need to go in terms of the future? Is it fixed by a job title, for example? Do we know how that job is changing or evolving over time and how that's impacting the career progression of that colleague? Do we need to have a benchmark, if not for everyone, but is it inside a team? So really understanding that allows us to plan in an agile way how to cope with the strategic change that's going on around about us at any one particular point in time. So we jump on to the next slide, Dinah.
So there are some implications that you're all going to be really those risks, those implications of not knowing about the skills you have. Without the information, you're really going to be limiting your success. You only know what you know. You don't understand there's hidden skills, hidden insights in there. And that will impact your performance. And ultimately, it's wasting time and wasting money because that's not going to be optimizing how you could use the skills that you've already got in different ways. So there are some benefits to knowing about the skills that you do have. It gives you an ability to find hidden talent. It helps you, again, hire for the right skills and find out what's really missing. So you're not just hiring for a job title.
Yep.
You've got a better, deeper understanding of the skills that you have in your organization to find out what do you actually need to hire for? What's the real gap that you're looking to address? It also allows you to offer development for new skills needs because you're understanding the baseline of where you are and where you need to get to and what's the difference in that and how do you manage that gap with L&D or how do you manage that gap with secondments, for instance. And you can also manage and optimize the utilization of your people. So if you're not aware of the skills that you've got, you're not aware of the skills that are being used either, and understanding how those skills are used in the jobs, how those skills are used in the jobs that you have and the roles that you're performing is a better way of driving for performance next year. So this really helps you get to that point of strategic alignment of skills. So you can start to think about 2026 in terms of any transformation activities, any projects that you need to do delivered against the role and the skills that help to make that happen. You can also start to spot the succession gaps or any risks to delivery there. So you might have, as we're touching on, gaps in your workforce and risks there that are around we don't have the skills to deliver this piece of work. And you can also optimize your performance with the right skills in the right place at the right time, which is a theme that we keep coming back to in this, isn't it?
Yeah. I think it's quite surprising as well. Sometimes when you dig into this as an exercise, you start to identify where skills are maybe like oversubscribed to or undersubscribed to. So underutilization of certain key skills that you think that you need to hire for, but actually you've got them right there inside your organization already. So the first step that we're going to talk about today is, well, how can we really get into this? How do we take this mini skills audit of our organization and get started? And we're going to walk you through how you can put together a discovery exercise in your organization. It looks at baselining the skills that you have today, identifying what those core skills are, identifying the different types of experience level that you really need inside your organization. And then critically, from doing that, we can spot the gaps far quicker. And then we can start to think about what interventions or actions do we really need in terms of, A, are we going to have to hire in a whole new role to fulfill this gap? Or are we going to reskill or upskill using L&D, but very tailored L&D to our needs at that particular point in time? So it'll be exciting to kind of get a start on that as well.
Yeah. And so, as we did with the last webinar, this webinar, you have another free guide that will help you to step through this in your organization. So, last week you had your free guide on finding hidden skills. So, this will really help in this stage about learning about the skills you have. And also this week, we've got a free guide giveaway called Start a Skills Audit. So we'll be sending that out, and it gives you a step-by-step guide to getting started with understanding the skills you have in your organization.
At Skillsminer, we're always trying to help organisations to be able to do this baselining quicker and faster at scale. We know a lot of people can spend months sometimes trying to get that fixed picture on their audit overall, or even we've seen in new businesses when they're setting up as they're trying to plan strategically ahead for the roles that they have. Even that can be really difficult, even if it's like a complete blank canvas that they have as well. It can be much more dynamic to do this in Skillsminer. We really help employers get to that first baseline view of what is inside each of their employees' skills profile. You can import that information from existing data that you have, and this is about like what we talked about last week, using data that you already have inside your organization in a much more cost-effective way. You can also import that from CSV, or you can do it standalone. And it's giving you a much more consistent view that helps us to compare the data that you have and start to spot any kind of gaps in provisioning or capability. And as well as breaking down those roles and jobs into skills, your employees can now see their own Skillsminer or their own Skillsminer and skills build up over time. And that's also leading to transparency and trust and engagement, and they can see how they're strategically contributing to the growth of the business. They can validate their skills from here and confirm with line management their own capabilities, and you can have a much more reliable view of the skills inside your organization that's dynamic and in real time, so as they're inputting and you're inputting information, that's building up over time. So those gaps can really be addressed as well critically with personalized L&D, and the roles critically can be filled with the right skilled individuals, and not just what we think, but what we actually know based from the data itself.
Yeah, it's that data-driven decision making there that really helps us optimize how we perform in 2026, isn't it, Kirsty?
Yes.
So I think that we've covered there the first of our concepts, learning about the skills you have. Obviously, you have to get to this point of some sort of baseline where you can progress from and understand where to make your decisions from. So, our next concept, if we move on to introduce that, is to discover more about the skills that you need as well. So, this is really important for you to think about. And so many businesses that we talk to have different ways of looking at this and different sort of horizon points for them to understand where they sit. But we definitely have to have one eye on the future, and the future starts today when it comes to skills and performance, because every change that's hitting your organization will have some element of skill change or receptive adaptability to that change, and that will impact your performance. So if we think over the last year, the changes that we've had with introducing AI into organizations, that's impacted almost every role and everyone carrying out those roles. So it's important to have some kind of horizon scan for your own business about the changes and the work that you need to deliver. So there's real implications here for a business. If you don't think about the skills that you need, at least in some way, it will impact your business performance and the value, because there are skills that you don't have, and you need to know what they are to be able to address them and to do something about that. Even if that decision point will be, we're not going to do anything about those skills we don't have, but you need to be aware of it and understand that that's at least then an action point that you've made a decision on, rather than just not knowing and not being able
Yes.
to make a call. There are, of course, national skills shortages. There are international skills shortages in specific areas. And also in some of our experience, there are also population challenges. So you might have a specific need to grow a capability in a certain area, but you actually don't have people to fit into
Yep.
that role. So this is about you shifting your mindset into that strategic workforce planning space, which we'll come on to in a couple of webinars time.
Yep.
But regardless of that, no one can really afford to stay static in this and not have some sort of plan for the future. And even a small step is going to be beneficial to you. Were you going to add something in there, Kirsty?
Yeah, I am. I'm really just thinking about, even rural economies where there's industrial strategy at play. We're looking to rebuild and regrow in those areas where people have moved out of those regions because, the industries of years gone past have declined, and now they're trying to regrow them again. So we need to really think about how we're engaging, not just internally, but that external picture. How is that impacting on the inward investment that we need to make in our businesses, and also attracting new businesses into a region as well? If I'm thinking about this at kind of governmental level.
Yeah.
And only last week I was having a conversation with a number of organisations across the aerospace sector. And, they're faced with a kind of a growing need to look, to a younger workforce. They've got an aging workforce. I think it was around about 29% of workers in their sector now over the age of 55. So this is not just in aerospace. I think probably if I looked across the board, there's quite an aging population in all industries, so it's about trying to think about, what does that future look like? What does the future intake look like? And like what Dinah said, if it's not now, then it is going to impact your business at some stage. Or if you win a new contract, then wouldn't it be really great to at least have your eye on what does that bigger picture look like for us regionally? And can we get our hands on those skills if we really needed them? So there's a lot more to it than just actually understanding the present need. And also from a competitive point of view, it's brilliant to be able to be ahead of the curve in terms of how you cope with change.
Definitely. And so where do you begin? So
Yep.
thoughts here on this to help you. You can start with the hard to fill roles that you have right now. So these are your instant skills shortages that you have, roles you can't fill today. They're giving you a highlight that you have a need there that needs to be examined or addressed. You've also got new projects that could be coming into your planning for 2026. They could be impacting your business performance. You might be thinking, okay, we can backfill those roles with existing people, or we might have to hire in new people. But you want to be thinking, really, what do we need right now to deliver our capability for 2026? And we know it's on the chat there, some people are in hiring freezes. So that's going to bring its own challenges as well into that. As you mature this approach around thinking about the skills you need, the next phase will be thinking about key roles, key skills, or priority areas, thinking a bit more strategically. They're going to help you identify your future skills needs.
Yep. So how do we really go about finding out what's needed? And so if we start to really look at the new roles or new projects that we have inside our business, and we start to identify the key skills that we need right now, We can start to identify declining skills. You know, if we look at this right across the board, AI is replacing some of the skills that we have. Also, the digital triggers round about that as well. Dinah, we've seen that quite at scale in this last year. Lots of conversation about how that's impacting businesses. So it's really great to be able to understand how transferable are those skills into new needs that the business actually has. Where can we then start to find those future skills that we need? And as we said right at the beginning of our call today, many organisations are only really looking ahead to the first 6 or 12 months on that horizon. And so understanding that skills and capability and how that's driving their annual business plans is going to become really, really vital as we step into 26.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not just a personal need, it's extending the reach beyond your horizon of where you are right now. It's looking at what is good practice for optimizing performance and managing the risk around about the skills that we need. And how can we then start to look at this, and we'll build on this next week when we start to look at that strategic workforce planning in the next webinar. So yeah, as Dinah just touched upon, you know, we've got international and national and regional trends in there. There's some common resources round about that you can kind of look into when thinking about this stuff. But most of the time, starting internally is a really fantastic place to just kind of get that baseline and get going with everything. So yeah, I think this is a really valuable first start on that. And what we hope is that when you start to look at your own data, you find that you can start to get a greater insight into what those next steps might look like for your own organisation. So I think now is probably a good time to just kind of think a little bit about if anybody has any kind of specific skill needs in their own industry or sector as well, just to take some notes down, or feel free to jot it down in the chat as well.
If you want to put anything in the chat, please feel free to do so. I know people often don't want to necessarily share their skills needs, but if we do have anything, pop that in the chat and we can pick that up. So let's just jump forward then, where we're thinking about changing skills and changing approaches and things that we've got to look at. We're moving forward onto our third concept. How do we hire for skills? How do we access the hidden talent inside our teams? So we've now learnt what we currently have, we're looking at what we need, and how do we do this next part?
We all know that, you know, really hiring can be expensive, you know, and it's not something we want to get wrong, because obviously there's a degree of holding hands when somebody joins in the business, and there's that time to productivity as well. So there is also other organisations right now that are not hiring. They've got those hiring freezes, Dinah, that you just talked about as well. So lots of businesses are quite cautious at this moment in time. Some businesses are actually having to let people go, but they're still needing to grow and think about how they augment the skills that they have inside their business. So there's lots of implications around about this that we kind of dig into with different organisations. So if you think about not hiring, there's a risk of stalling performance. Wrong hires can impact on our performance overall. And then missing people is just either by attrition or otherwise, is just really stalling that growth too. So it's helping you to, once you understand what you have now, it's helping you to think about how do we forward plan or navigate round about those sort of changes in your business as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think that missing people out and making people not feel like they're valued talent is a huge problem in a lot of organizations as well. It's like we can concentrate on the top level, on the strategic priorities, but we're not always thinking top to bottom, which we touched on in our first webinar about how you can help explain how this change impacts people right from the top to the bottom of the organization. And it's really valuable to touch back to that webinar.
Yeah, we had also a really interesting comment about that this week, is about just the silent leavers, people who are inside the organisation but just feel like they're kind of drifting, they're not strategically attached to the overall direction of growth. And then when you miss out on people who are engaged, there's a danger of losing them as well, you know, to other great organisations. So it's really important that we try to take everybody on that journey as we move forward. Yeah, and just we keep coming back to this. It's the ability to be able to see the right skills, deploy them in the right place and at the right time for your business. Starting from now. That's the point.
So, how do you go about actually hiring for skills and looking at the hidden talent inside your teams? So, obviously, it's the same as any kind of hiring process, but you might want to open your eyes to doing more developmental opportunities, sideways moves, secondments, job shadowing, anything that's going to help develop your people and develop your performance and develop those skills that you need. If you can articulate that job title, that role, that project, and specify the skills that need to be learned or need to be applied rather to that role,
Mm-hmm.
then you can think about articulating what that need is. And then your next step, typically for organizations, will be to share this sort of on internal job boards or communicate that via line managers. And then you might be in a position where you're waiting for people to apply for that and generating some activity and some action around that and some interest in this as like, expressions of interest or how can you get involved with these projects. And then your third step will be to fill that role or that project and look at the utilization of your workforce and also how doing that new role updates the skills profile of the person who had undertaken that extra opportunity.
Yep.
So, Kirsty, do you want to run us through how that process works a bit differently if you were to do it in Skillsminer?
Yeah, so I think looking at this alternative view, you can kind of see some of that a little bit on the right-hand side there. Only step one, we're creating a role or a project. It automatically infers the skills requirements. So you're not having to sit and think, oh goodness, what kind of key skills do I need or competency for fulfilling this particular task? You can then start to automatically mine for that talent and take a proactive approach to promoting an opportunity that's going out to all people that have a capability to be able to fulfill this need inside your organization. So we're reducing that time to hire. We're reducing significantly the time to productivity, because if you think about it, those people already inside your organization know how things kind of work, or they should at least have a very good or a better idea than a new hire. And I really love that the opportunities it's much more decentralized, so we're not picking the people that we know. We're not just going to one siloed part of the business. It's horizontally looking across the business for just the right person, just like what we said in the previous slide, the right skills for the right task at the right time. And finally, Skillsminer can really show you how to manage and utilize those skills that your employees and colleagues have. We can see, and they can see also in real time as they fulfill these tasks or take part in these new roles, they can see the new skills that they're gaining in real time. So it's really creating that dynamic and open transparency round about skills progression in your organization. We're finding that really helps to drive engagement inside the organization too.
Yep, great. Thank you. So we've covered there 3 concepts, 30 minutes, 3 concepts. We push ourselves,
I
don't we,
know.
to cover these things off, but we're hoping that these help you to just get, an initial flavor for some of the things that you want to achieve in your businesses. So today we've learned about the skills that you have. We've had a look at how you can discover more about the skills that you need and where to get started with that. And we've also looked at how to hire for skills and look at that hidden talent.
Mm-hmm.
Don't forget, we have also got this week's free giveaway guide to help you build out your plan for 2026, which is getting nearer and nearer. So you can see that and you'll be sent that after today's session. And just to give you a reminder of our flow through the workshops that we've been talking about, you are here. So you have
With a big light.
Exactly. You have looked at these different elements, and we've covered off today these next 3 stages. And coming up next week is looking at understanding how to do reskilling, upskilling, and personalized skills pathways.
We've covered off everything that I think is quite critical to taking those first steps. You've got some top tips to get on with. And as Dinah and I have just said, it's lovely to hear back in as people are doing that through the week. So if you've got any questions or anything like that, please feel free to drop us a note. We're happy to have a quick chat, and we look forward to seeing everybody same time next week.
Definitely. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you for joining the call, everybody. Thanks now.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.